Welcome to MotoMedic. Today I'm going to show you guys how to remove and rebuild and replace the carburetors on a Suzuki GS1000. The first thing you're going to want to do, you're going to want to get the tank off. There's a bolt right back here. It's a 12mm bolt on the back. Get that bad boy out of there. And then I always like to just make sure there's nothing attached, and of course spiders and stuff before you take it off. And you do have a vacuum line on this as well, so we're going to remove the vacuum line off the carbs so that I can take it off without any worries. So on this petcock, just up under there, you've got another line, and that is a vacuum line. It doesn't have an on-off. It's got a reserve, an on, and a prime. And when the bike is running, it's pulling vacuum and actually letting fuel come out of there. So thank goodness that this customer had a full tank of gas in his tank. And now that everything's apart and I've checked for the only spider being a daddy long legs under there, go ahead and remove the tank. 10 mil on that guy. Phillips head. Okay, I'll loosen these bad boys up. These things are pretty much garbage and sliding off anyway, which is pretty typical in a lot of cases with old bikes. These rubber boots are really start to deteriorate, especially if they get any gas or oil on them. Over time, they just start to get bad, and it's probably one of the most common problems with a carbureted bike is simply air leakage. It's not necessarily quite as bad as if they're leaking out of these boots, but it's still not necessarily good if they're leaking out of this side either. So we'll clean them up real good and we'll inspect them, and if we have to replace anything, we'll let our customer know. And let's see, with any luck, we can push that back. All right. So because we've loosened it up here, we can push that back. Now we also do need to remove it from the crankcase, or from the head here. So it's easier usually because you're going to need to have some room. I like to take it off from the airbox, and then I can kind of just move it up and out of the way. And I need to get in there and kind of give it a little kickstart. There we go. There we go. So that should be quite enough to be able to get these carbs out really easily. And now I haven't yet drained these carburetors. If you do want to drain the carburetors, you've got some 10mm bolts down here. You can crack those loose and it'll drain. I just don't want to drain it right here, so I'm going to be real careful when I'm pulling these things off. A couple more clamps here. And these clamps are super loose, so that's already posing a possible problem. Obviously, I've got some spiders in here too that just are really disappointed with me. I hope there's no black ones with really interesting spots on the bottom. I don't want you around me, spider. I don't like spiders. I know, I'm a big wussy. Yeah, ladies, I'm available. Handy guy, decent looking, pretty funny. Looks aren't everything. Okay, throttle cable, got that disconnected. You're just gonna twisty pulley, which is a kind of a forks term for removing those. Same technique, twisty pulley. You could probably on this bike pull it out either side, but because all of the hoses for the most part and everything is accessible a little easier to me on this side, I'm gonna get it off through the left side of the bike and disconnect that, and a lot better access to the throttle cable to disconnect that. And there you have it, ladies and gents. One rack of Suzuki GS1000 carburetors. So there they are. They are positioned same way that they go on the bike. Essentially what I'm going to be doing is inspecting everything from top to bottom. Now when you do a rebuild like this, and it does come with jets, you do want to make sure, I mean, you can clean out the old jets, but definitely replace them if they're the right size. So from here, I'm going to basically start from my number 1 cylinder and work my way across. Now the process for each of these is going to be exactly the same. So I'll show you the first one and just repeat those steps one after the other. And you will be just fine as far as doing exactly what we're going to do. If you do have this particular bike, you will be looking for the K&L with that part number. Starting over here, I've already drained the fuel, and we're just going to get in here and remove our screws. We'll get this last screw out, we'll pop this bowl out. Super simple, just give it a little shucking and jiving and it'll pop out. Should pop out, that thing's been on there a while. There it goes. Released from it, and then, oh man. Look at that, would you look at that? Oh, that's disgusting up in there. So that's just the first one, so we're gonna go ahead and clean everything out. What we're gonna be changing and cleaning is everything in this bad boy, including our float bowl. So I'm gonna go ahead and start by removing the float bowl. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull that float bowl out. I'm gonna set the pin and the float bowl aside. Get this bad boy loose. And we're going to slide that collar back. And now you should be able to remove the float valve. And it's got an O-ring, so you may have to work it out a little bit. Valve now. And there's that girty, grungy old float valve. Now I'm not too worried about that thing, so I'm going to get my needle nose out and just twisty pulley this bad boy. There we go. Always use the right size flat blade, because it's better to have the one that's just barely fitting in nice and big in there than some tiny little thing you're going to strip that thing out with. So I've gone ahead and gone through and just sprayed some cleaner in here, gotten everything that's debris related out of there, and also blown through everything with compressed air. Getting any debris out of there is going to make sure that any of the passageways aren't going to be clogged with anything. I still have to get this needle, this pilot jet out, but just making sure that I'm blowing through everything and cleaning everything out is going to be a good thing. And install that little guy. It's just springed. It just springs around it and holds the valve in place. I don't want it to get in there and mix with fuel or anything, but I do want it to not jack up that nice clean O-ring. So a little layer of grease on there. And we will a little twist and a little push as we go in. And there she goes. Starting to go down. There we go. We will go ahead and replace our main valve since I've got this thing sitting out here raring to go. Go ahead and stick a new main valve in there. And get that seated. Not over tightened, but good and seated. I've had customers go, I can't figure out why my bike's not running. It'll idle fine. You pull the bowl off and the main valve came out. This is slightly larger. It'll actually run it a little richer at idle, which is probably not a bad thing because they did run these things pretty lean from the factory. There it goes. There we go. I think that says 40. You guys can't see it, but I'm barely seeing a number on it, so I think we're good there too. Either way, having a nice clear passageway for the fuel to go is going to work wonders for its way of how it runs. It will be a much happier camper. And we'll go ahead and replace that cap there. So basically there, you've done pretty much everything from the bottom that you're able to do. So I kind of skipped ahead here, but basically, you're gonna put the, as I'm getting texted and stuff, you're gonna put the new gasket on there and put your float back in there and measure the float height. And on this particular bike, I believe, what was this float height? Was 22.4 millimeters plus or minus a millimeter. So as long as you've got that float height set, I did measure mine and confirm that it was right, and I'm good to go on these floats. So after I've got the pin all the way jammed in there, remember it was really hard to get out, we might as well make sure it's all the way in to do the same thing. Once I got the float in there, I already measured it and made sure it was good, and now it's just about putting that back on, screwing it back on, and then I do have a new gasket for the bowl drain as well. I think that's a good place to stop for now. Since we've done that one carb, you're gonna just do the same exact thing on the next 3 carbs. If your kit does have a new air screw and you have not yet drilled out the old one to replace that, I'm going to do another video where we do that to these carbs, and then we reinstall, we do a bench sync, and then we reinstall and tune these carbs into the bike. So stick around for the next video, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss it, and we'll talk to you another time. Have a great, great week, everybody. Bye.